3 spine-chilling true tales of sinister encounters in the haunted woods revealed at midnight. Sarah never thought a fresh start would feel so heavy. The farmhouse loomed over her, its peeling paint and broken shutters matching the weight on her heart. She just wanted a normal life for her children, Lily and Jake. As they explored the untamed grounds, laughter filled the air, but then things shifted. The woods whispered dark secrets. Mrs. Hargrove, their eerie neighbor, warned them. "The woods, they take what's precious," she said, eyes wide with fear. The shadows grew longer, and so did Sarah's anxiety. At first, the children ran wild with joy. They collected wildflowers and marveled at stone formations. But then, the whispers became louder, filling Sarah with dread. It was like an unseen force was watching them, waiting. Jake's curiosity about the woods only deepened while Sarah's protective instincts flared. The nights were filled with strange noises. Rustles and thumps echoed through the farmhouse, bouncing off the walls until Sarah could hardly breathe. The feeling of being hunted crept into her mind. Then came that fateful evening when fear clutched Sarah's heart. Jake dashed into the woods, chasing after something only he could see. "Just a moment," she called, but he didn't turn back. The sun dipped low, and the last slivers of light faded away, casting long, deep shadows around her. She could feel the fear snaking through her veins as she screamed his name into the gathering darkness, the woods swallowing her calls. Panic dove deep into her chest, squeezing tight. In that suffocating silence, a man emerged. He wore a uniform, but something felt wrong. "I'm here to help," he said, but the way he looked around unnerved her. He studied the trees with unsettling eagerness, his clipboard clutched like a lifeline. It felt like he was one of those things Mrs. Hargrove spoke of, cloaked in authority yet wrapped in malice. Doubt twisted her insides. What if he knew what lurked out there? She rushed to the sheriff's office, breathless with desperation. They chuckled. "Just a kid running around. You're overreacting." But they hadn't heard the whispers. They hadn't felt the terror tightening like a noose around her throat. Alone, yet driven, Sarah needed to find Jake before the woods concealed him forever. Stepping into the underbrush, fog clung to her skin. Shadows danced along the trees, mocking her. Panic shot through her as she fought to block out tales of shadowed figures and creatures from local folklore. But she pressed onward, the primal need to save her child overpowering every instinct to turn back. With every step, the fear coiled tighter. The woods felt alive. Who knew what sinister force could be lurking around every corner? A sudden rustle sent her heart racing. She spun, breath hitching in her throat, fingers trembling against the rough bark of a tree. The air thickened around her. The laughter of her children echoed faintly in her mind, growing fainter as she ventured deeper into the darkened expanse. What awaited her just beyond the shadows? And was she already too late? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The air faded to an uneasy stillness, a heavy reminder that every step was pulling her in deeper to something beyond her understanding. Just as hope flickered, a heart-wrenching cry echoed from the dark, a familiar voice, one she couldn't ignore. "Mom!" Jake's voice. But where? The dread surged, filling her lungs as she darted toward the sound, fueled by a mother's love and an ominous dread lingering just behind her. What waited among the trees, watching, waiting? "Mom!" The sound of Jake's voice sliced through the suffocating silence. It was tainted with a desperation that sent electrifying fear coursing through Sarah. She rushed toward it, heart pounding, the need to find her son pushing her feet faster than she ever thought possible. "Jake!" She called again, every rustle of branches and snap of twigs beneath her feet echoing like gunshots in the stillness. Shadows loomed, stretching across her path, twisting like nightmares come to life. She stumbled forward, glancing back every few seconds, convinced something or someone was lurking just out of sight. The woods felt alive. There was an almost tangible energy thrumming beneath the surface, whispering dark secrets only the trees could comprehend. It urged her onward even as it clawed at her sanity. "Mom, help." The voice was much closer now, barely above a whisper. Panic swirled in her chest, an unbearable weight. She was getting nearer. Where was he? She could barely process the shadows around her, but one shadow shifted unnaturally, like a thick fog parting for something sinister. For a moment, the air grew colder, and she felt a chill wrap around her heart. What if it was too late? A flash of blonde hair caught her eye. It was Jake. He was crouched beneath a gnarled root, trembling, eyes wide as saucers. Relief flooded her, but it quickly morphed into confusion as she knelt beside him. "Jake, come on. We have to go." He stayed silent, staring into the darkness behind her. "No, Mom. Don't look." His hands dug into the dirt as he held her back. The feeling of dread returned, stronger this time, like hands gripping her throat. She turned slowly, and there it was, a figure. Indistinct but close enough to see its menacing outline. Long limbs, stretching, curling like smoke. It didn't move like a person. It slithered, pulling against the trees and creeping closer, its presence suffocating that a sharp gasp escaped her lips, and the sound seemed to draw it nearer. She grabbed Jake, pulling him close. "Run!" She shouted, dragging him with her as they sprinted through the underbrush, the whispering voices rising in a crescendo around them. "Mom! It's coming!" Jake cried out, but she couldn't look back. The echo of something sinister followed, twisting and curling through the trees, making her feel small and prey-like. Each pulse of fear kept her feet moving, even as the chilling truth clenched around her heart. They had to make it out. Branches clawed at them as they dashed back toward the faint outline of the farmhouse, but the forest felt like a labyrinth, shifting around them. The laughter that once filled the woods was now replaced by a dreadful silence, amplifying the sound of their gasping breaths. Suddenly, Jake stumbled, and Sarah stopped, panic splitting her mind. "What is it?" He pointed. "Look." Just ahead lay a clearing, but something about it felt wrong. The soil beneath was dark and wet, pulsating as if alive. Tread marks sank deep, leading into the unnatural gloom. They looked like those of something heavy, something that had dragged itself through the earth. "I don't want to go in there." Jake's voice trembled as he held tighter to her hand. The darkness around them seemed to respond, as tendrils crept from the shadows, beckoning them forward, insistent, promising safety at a price only the woods knew. With a surge of dread, Sarah turned back, yet the path they had taken began to fade, cloaked in shadows. There was no path anymore. The woods had shifted, swallowed it whole. They were trapped. And worse? The whispering had turned into a low hum, a beckoning call that promised peace but oozed malice. Jake's voice was barely a whisper. "This isn't right. What was happening? What had the woods taken from her?" The vibe turned sickening, an ancient trap laid down by forces older than any tales she'd heard. She clutched Jake tightly, her mind racing for a plan, frantic to escape the very woods that had taken everything from her. But as her eyes darted, a figure emerged from the depths of the clearing, luminous yet dark, and Sarah realized she wasn't the one searching for her son. It was time to confront what wanted to keep him forever. What lurked beyond the edge of her fears? Would she dare to face it? Or would the woods take them both? The figure in the clearing loomed larger, its form warping between the tree trunks like a dark mist taking shape. Sarah's heart raced, each beat echoing in her ears like a war drum. "Stay close, Jake," she hissed, though fear coiled tightly around her. Jake's grip tightened around her hand, his wide eyes glistening with unshed tears. Mom, I can feel it, it wants me. His voice faltered, trembling on the edge of desperation. A shudder raced through Sarah as she glanced around. The whispers grew louder, swelling into a cacophony that buzzed in her head. They felt like spoken memories, dark and twisted tales crafted from fear. We can't let it take you, she breathed, forcing the words out like a prayer. The shadowy figure took a step forward, long limbs stretching into the darkness, inching toward them with eerie grace. Its face remained obscured, an abyss from which nothing emerged. The air, thick with dread, pushed against her chest like a weight threatening to crush her. "Run, Jake!" she yelled, her instincts kicking in as the sleek shape darted forward. They bolted into the darkness, but the forest warped around them, closing in tighter with every stride, branches weaving like fingers catching at their clothes and flesh. They stumbled into the clearing, the horrid soil now a putrid quagmire threatening to swallow them whole. "No!" Jake yanked at her, his voice raw. "We have to go back." "Back where?" "There's nothing there," Sarah screamed, panic threading through her tone. A flash of movement caught her eye. At the edge of the shadows, something flickered. It was the figure again, its form shifting constantly, as if the fabric of reality struggled to contain it. Light danced off its surface, casting grotesque shapes on the ground, a face that wasn't a face, limbs that coiled like serpents. "Mom!" Jake's scream cut through the haze of panic. "It saw me." He turned, dragging at her hand, pulling her toward the far side of the clearing where the trees leaned closer together, gnarled roots snagging at the ground. The darkness pulsed, thicker and more alive around them. With every step, the whispers escalated, maddening, tugging at the edge of her sanity. They weren't just sounds, they were voices, beguiling, echoing her own fears, offering tantalizing promises of safety if only they would listen, if only they would submit. "Jake!" Sarah tugged at him, forcing her voice to claw through the chaos. "We need to keep moving." She felt a pull, an unsettling tug at her very soul, like the woods themselves were trying to swallow them alive. "This way," she urged, dragging Jake past the invading shadows, their bright forms somehow shifting into deeper blackness, but the ground beneath her feet churned. Each step felt like wading through thick, dark tar, the world around them condensing, folding over itself until it was almost overwhelming. "Mom, look!" Jake yelled, pointing at the edge of the clearing. A narrow trail, barely visible, wound around the twisted roots and dark soil. Hope ignited in Sarah's chest, yet it felt fragile, like a candle flickering against a terrifying storm. Then, from behind her, she heard it, a soft, echoing melody, sweet and haunting, wrapping around her like a spider's web. "Come to me, come to us." She spun around, panic bursting forth as the figure drifted closer. A chill swept through her, and in that moment of eye contact, she saw it. There was no face, no eyes staring back, only the unending void of an abyss that threatened to swallow them whole. "No! We have to go!" she shouted, breaking free of its trance, pulling Jake with her. They rushed toward the pathway, desperation fueling every frantic step, but the whispers transformed into screams, echoing around them, coursing over the trees like an unholy chant. Shadows danced maliciously, the darkness swirling to envelop them, hungry, furious. As they reached the path, the ground beneath erupted, claws of unseen forces grasping at their ankles. "Hold on tight!" Sarah shouted, her heart racing, primal instincts surging back to life. Jake's breath hitched as they fought forward, dragging themselves free from the clutches of the forest. But behind them, the figure surged forward, a horrifying silhouette merging with the encroaching shadows to envelop the path. "Mom!" Jake cried, terror flooding his voice. "It's not far behind." They raced ahead, but the echoes of the forest grew louder. The trail twisted, leading deeper into the darkness. She could feel the deceptive comfort of the whispers returning, luring them into despair. What if the woods never released them? The shadows thickened, snaking around their feet, each step pulling them further from freedom. They had to find a way, or risk losing everything. As they plunged deeper, Sarah realized in the depths of her panic that this was only the beginning. She gripped Jake's hand tighter, knowing the true challenge lay just ahead. Would the dark woods consume them completely, or could they find a way to light the path to salvation? They charged down the narrow trail, the ground slick and treacherous beneath their feet. Every step was a battle against the forest trying to block their escape. Branches whipped at them as if they were being punished for intruding into this forsaken place. Sarah could feel her breath catching in her throat, a sharp reminder that they had little time left. "Keep moving. Don't look back," she shouted, but the words were swallowed by a rising tide of whispers that slithered into her mind. They were relentless, clawing at her thoughts like a pack of hungry wolves. "Join us, join us." Jake stumbled, and she jerked him back, an instinctive reaction fueled by fear. The path twisted violently, almost mocking their desperate flight. "Are we getting out of here?" he panted, his voice a thin wisp of hope. "I don't know," she admitted, her heart sinking. The whispers roared, drowning out her thoughts. "But we have to try." The darkness seemed to pulse around them, alive and predatory. Each flicker of movement in the night felt like a betrayal, a shadow scuttling just out of sight. Sarah felt a gnawing unease settle in her stomach. The forest wasn't just trying to trap them. It wanted something deeper. Something darker. "Mom!" Jake yelled, yanking her back to focus, his eyes wide with terror. "It's too quiet, I don't like it." Before she could respond, a deafening silence fell, clamping down on the world like a vice. Panic surged through her as every sound they made was swallowed whole. The whispers faded into an unnatural hush. It was eerie, the absence of sound felt wrong, like standing on the edge of a precipice. Then, without warning, a deafening roar broke the silence, shaking the very ground beneath them. The dark mist surged, reshaping itself, becoming something more tangible, more grotesque. Sarah's body went cold as she glanced back and saw the figure larger now, closer. It moved with unnatural fluidity, limbs stretching unnaturally, the voids where its eyes should have been looming hungrily ahead. "Run, Jake. We can't stop." They stumbled forward, adrenaline surging through their veins. The path narrowed, branches clawing at them like skeletal hands desperate to pull them into the abyss. The sound of crashing footsteps echoed behind them, heavy and foreboding. It wasn't far now, she could feel it gaining ground. "Mom! I can't!" Jake cried, his voice cracking. "Yes, you can. Just keep moving." A twisted root shot out from the side, snagging her foot. She fell, sharply smacking the ground, fire shooting up her leg. Desperation clawed at her chest. "Get up, Sarah. Get up." Jake turned, his face gone pale, terror written in the depths of his eyes. "Mom, please. We have to go." With a burst of strength, she ripped her foot free and leapt to her feet. But the figure loomed closer. Dim and formless, it swirled with darkness, whispering promises laced with malice that seeped into her very being. "Join us," it cooed again, that demonic voice wrapping around her like a siren song. "Don't listen." Sarah screamed, as they plunged deeper into the terrifying landscape of undulating shadows. The air thickened, choking her breath as the forest bore down, squeezing them tighter, closer to the brink of being consumed. Ahead, a glimmer of light appeared, a promise of hope that stood out stark against the darkness. There. But just as they took off toward it, the shadows surged like a hungry tide, crashing against them, vying to drag them back. Sarah felt her grip on Jake's hand slip as he was almost wrenched from her grasp. "No!" she screamed, pulling hard against the shadows, fighting against the tide of despair that threatened to drag them down. With a strength she didn't know she possessed, she yanked Jake back to her side, and together they surged forward, eyes fixed on the light ahead. But with every step, the whispers came back around them, shrieking in rage as if they were being robbed of their prey. As they neared the light, a sudden thought hit her: what if it was a trap? The final trick of the woods, the promise of salvation designed to pull them in, to merge them into the darkness that clawed for their souls. It could be a trap. She shouted, fear battling with hope. Jake's tiny face was dark with indecision, but then he looked back, eyes widening. We have to go. Now. Plunging toward the flickering light, Sarah could almost taste freedom on her lips. But the shadows were relentless, and as they broke through into the clearing, the night erupted. Breathless, they stumbled out into the open space, tidal waves of darkness collapsing behind them. Yet the chilling figure reshaped at the edge, eyes like voids absorbing the last of the evening light. Sarah felt the forest sigh, a deep, terrible expulsion of sorrow and rage. What do we do now? Jake whispered, trembling. They stood frozen as the darkness throbbed, the figure still looming, waiting, hungry. The shadows whispered promises of relief and safety while darkness encircled them, a waiting predator ready to strike. But was the light truly their salvation, or just another trick? What had they unleashed? And how do they fight something that feeds off their very fears? It was clear now, the woods would not let them go easily. The flickering light danced wildly ahead, an uncertain beacon amidst the suffocating dark, but they had no choice. With every heartbeat, Sarah felt the pull of the darkness clawing at her back like dwindling breaths, desperate to reclaim what it had lost. She grasped Jake's hand tighter, her pulse racing in time with the mounting dread that lurked just out of sight. We have to hold on to the light, she urged, a quiver in her voice that betrayed her own apprehension. The very essence of the woods thrummed with a sinister excitement, resonating with the whispers that crawled along their skin, challenging their will to escape. They sprinted toward the light, the ground beneath them pulsing, shifting like an angry sea. Sarah risked a glance behind. The figure loomed larger, a mass of shadows swirling where its face should have been. It was a grotesque apparition, dripping with malevolence, as if the forest itself had taken form to close in on them. Faster! Sarah shouted. The path was too narrow now, the trees drawing closer together, as if aware of their flight. There was no room for hesitation, only the relentless push forward. As the light grew nearer, it morphed into something tangible, a brittle, twisted tree with gnarled branches wrapped in strands of shimmering, golden light. It was breathtaking and horrifying all at once. Was this the salvation they'd sought, or another deception spun by the forest's dark heart? Mom, what if it's a trick? Jake whispered, his voice trembling as his wide eyes reflected the golden gleam. We have to take the chance. She replied, the words spilling out in a desperate rush. The shadows crept closer, stretching forward like fingers intent on capturing them. With one last burst of energy, they reached the tree. Sarah felt the warmth of the golden light wash over her, sweeping through her like a gentle tide. The whispers faded here, drowned out by the soft sighs of the light that surrounded them. For a fleeting moment, she felt hope flicker inside her. She thought they might actually be safe, but then the ground began to tremble, the earth cracked beneath their feet, sending fissures snaking outward. The shadows recoiled at the edge of the light, yet they moved, coiling and unfurling, creating a wall that threatened to hold them in place. The soft glow flickered ominously, as if the light itself were afraid. Jake! She cried, gripping her son's shoulders as the tremors escalated, panic etching itself into her features. We need to hurry. Climb. They scrambled up the tree, the light casting an otherworldly glow that illuminated their frantic expressions. But the further they ascended, the more the shadows fought back, wrapping around the basis of that splendid thing, gnashing and clawing. Mom! Jake shouted, as the darkness twitched below them, hungrily reaching for their feet. It's coming. Just a little further, she urged, propelling him upward. The whispers returned, rising like a cacophony of cries, soaking the air with despair. Join us, come back. They reached a branch thick enough to support their weight. Panting, they perched there, peering down at the scene unfolding below. The creature had reformed, an amorphous mass swirling dark and furious. It directed the shadows, letting them billow outward with incredible force, trying to breach the sanctuary they found in the light. "We can't stay here." Jake's voice was small, quaking against the onslaught. Sarah's heart raced. Somewhere deep down, she knew they couldn't just hide. "We need to fight." The words tasted bitter, fighting against the primal instinct to flee. "What can we do?" Jake cried, clutching her. His fear echoed in his wide eyes, a reflection of her own resolve wavering. As the shadows elongated and crept toward them again, the tree began to tremble, shaking beneath them. Gritting her teeth, Sarah racked her mind for some way to fend off the darkness. But was there truly a defense against something who thrived in the depths of fear? The ground beneath their perch began to crumble into a chasm of shadow, yawning wide like a cavern. Hungry for the two of them. And in that moment of dreadful realization, it hit her, the whispers weren't just calling to them, they were calling to something else, something that had been watching from beyond the shadows. "Jake, we have to go," she shouted as cracked wood splintered beneath them. The light trembled, flickering, as darkness climbed ever higher. Suddenly, a shriek ripped through the air, sounding like 1,000 voices melded into one horrific cacophony. The shadows roared in response, surging upward, and it felt like time froze. With the entire forest alive with rage and despair, they faced an unimaginable choice that waited just beyond the light. Escape seemed as far away as freedom itself, and the creature's unholy hunger vibrated through the air. Join us, what lay ahead in the dark might be worse than what sought to reclaim them. But the tree's light beckoned a challenge, perhaps a final sanctuary, or a trap waiting to close around them. Could they ever truly escape? And what was the fate that awaited them when the darkness finally reached its prize? The shadows surged like a tidal wave, clawing upward with a hunger that twisted Sarah's gut. Her mind raced, struggling to form a plan while the cacophony threatened to swallow them whole. "What do we do?" Jake's voice was small, each word a quiver of terror, echoing through the air thick with dread. "Hold my hand," Sarah yelled, grasping his tightly once more. They needed to stay connected if they were to survive. They had to resist the pull of darkness. "We need to find a way to the light. It might give us a chance." The whispers intensified, layers of voices overlapping, swirling around them in a mockery of the pleas they had just made. "Join us." The seductive tone chilled her bones. "Come back." Rising panic drove Sarah to scan the depths of the forest, her heartbeat drumming steadily in fear. Each shadow danced nearer, as if the very trees conspired to steal them away. "Think, Sarah, think." She berated herself, desperation surging within her. Then, in that oppressive gloom, an instinct flared. "Jake! If the light is behind us, we have to get down," she commanded, her heart pounding louder than the whispers. "What? Are you crazy?" Jake's eyes were wide, reflecting all the fear of the moment. "Trust me." She couldn't afford to second-guess herself. Gripping him again, she climbed back down the tree, heart pounding with the absurd hope that the shadows wouldn't follow. As they descended, the ground shivered beneath them, fissures growing deeper, threatening to swallow them whole even before they reached the earth. Each moment felt suspended in time, the hideous darkness twisting like wild vines, brushing against her legs, urging her to give in. "Keep moving." Sarah pulled Jake down, feeling the rough bark scrape against her palms. They hit the ground, sinking into the thick darkness for a moment before becoming aware of the cold wind rippling through the clearing. "Where are we?" Jake whispered, scanning the chaotic shadows that pulsated with menace. The whispers subsided, but a low growl reverberated through the forest floor, vibrating with a hunger for them. "Out of the tree, we need to go." Sarah rushed forward, instinct guiding her steps. They found themselves on a path shrouded in darkness, ink-black trees looming overhead. Suddenly, the ground shook with a powerful force, a surge of energy that sent leaves cascading down around them like dead confetti. Panic bolted through her. She staggered, grabbing Jake's arm. "This way." They ran, hearts pounding, breath coming in desperate gasps, the path snaking unpredictably. Then the whispers came rushing back, a tide of ghostly voices, dark, echoed, rasping through the trees. "Join us, come back, no!" Sarah screamed, anger igniting inside her. There had to be a way to fight this. She'd heard stories whispered by the fire about the spirits bound to the woods, forever seeking to take people back with them. "They're trying to trick us," she shouted to Jake, but doubt laced her voice. Ahead, they spotted something strange, a glimmer through the darkness. The tree's light pulsed, inviting yet treacherous, beckoning. "Mom, what if it's one of them?" Jake's voice trembled, filled with that all-too-familiar fear again. "It's our only chance," she replied, resolving to reach the light. It felt like hope, the warmth surrounding her like an embrace. Struggling against the undercurrents of fear, they charged forwards. As they neared the light, it flickered ominously. Shadows danced madly around the tree's base, a frenzy of blackness lashing out. Sarah stayed close to Jake, their breaths mingling with the raw intensity of dread. "Jake, let us hold on tight," she urged, grasping him firmly. The ground began to quake harder, splitting and cracking beneath their feet. The bellows of the forest whipped around them, an enraged chorus of invisible spirits rising. The tree loomed above, its branches twisted as if reaching for them, offering both shelter and menace. The shadows joined together, a mass of darkness that surged forth, blocking their path to freedom. "Whatever this is, we can't let it pull us under," Sarah yelled. Just as their feet sunk deeper into the earth's maw, she glanced up at the golden light flaring brilliantly, in defiance. A thought sparked. What if that light was not just illumination but also a weapon? With the shadows closing in fast, she faced Jake, determination flooding her veins. "We have to believe in the light," she shouted, more than just a plea, it was a resolve. The darkness recoiled, as if stunned. But would it be enough? As the branches began twisting dangerously, shaping into claw-like hands ready to pluck them away, Sarah felt the ancient pull of fate rising around them. They had a choice to make: retreat toward the light, or confront the consuming fear of darkness, and deep down, she knew what was about to happen could change everything. "Jake!" she cried, as a new sound broke from behind them, a rumbling, feral growl that echoed across the woods. "What is it?" She turned, her heart sinking when she caught the shimmer of something far worse hiding beneath the darkness. The hints of eyes gleaming, reflecting their illuminated horror. "No, not him," she whispered, her voice barely audible as dread tightened its grip around her heart. What would come of their choices, she couldn't tell. But she could feel the darkness yearning, reaching into the void, inching closer to the flickering light. As the tree swayed violently, fear gripped her like a vice. Would she confront this horror, or would they succumb to the shadows once more? Just then, the shrieks rose again, filling the forest once more, echoing out into the abyss of despair. Was there any way out of this nightmare, or would they finally be claimed by the darkness? The rumble grew louder, a low, throaty growl that curled around them like a snake poised to strike. Sarah's heart raced, each beat a frantic plea for escape. She could barely breathe, panic swelled in her chest like an inflating balloon, each whisper urging her to join the shadows, to give in to despair. "Jake, we need to move." She yanked his arm, trying to regain control. The light flickered above them, a beacon of hope, but weighed down by the heavy atmosphere suffocating them. The growl morphed into a terrible laugh that pierced the night, sending a chill rippling through the air. The shadows morphed into grotesque mockeries of faces, their mouths stretching into horrifying grins. "Join us," they chanted, a chorus of longing mixed with maddening insistence. "Come back, what do we do, Mom?" Jake's eyes brimmed with tears, reflecting the gleam of the light. Fear twisted in his voice as he clung tightly to her. Sarah felt the weight of his fear settle on her shoulders. "Trust me," she shouted over the darkness. She felt a surge of protectiveness, burning bright against the encroaching dread. They had to keep moving. The light was their only chance, but would it embrace them or consume them? Suddenly, the ground quaked violently, sending them tumbling to their knees. Branches snapped and creatures rustled through the leaves like unseen phantoms. The shadows lunged, thick tendrils reaching out to snatch at their ankles. Sarah grabbed Jake and pulled him up, urgency pressing on her like a wave. "Run!" Her voice cut through the chaos, forcing movement as they scrambled toward the glimmering light. But the forest didn't relent, each step met with a madness that roared and hissed around them. Just when they thought they'd escaped the clutches of the shadows, a weight pressed down from above. A swarm of dark figures descended through the trees, their forms twisting and bending, barely human. Gnarled hands stretched out, beckoning. "We're not lost," Sarah yelled, though doubt whispered in the back of her mind. The forest was alive with grotesques, each insisting that they turn back, that darkness was where they belonged. "Mom, they're here!" Jake screamed, his voice cracking in terror. The growls echoed, multiplying as if mocking their desperation. The light flickered one last time, casting long shadows that danced in sinister delight. Sarah's feet felt glued to the ground, fear wrapping its claws tightly around her. She glanced back to see the faces twisted in anguish, memories of souls snatched by the forest. "We have to push through." She rallied, though her own resolve trembled. With renewed determination, she held Jake's hand and sprinted forward, the light pulling them with every step. But as they neared, the shadows howled an unholy scream, a sound that reverberated through her very bones. The air thickened, pressing against them, a tangible force that threatened to crush their spirit. "Keep going," Sarah urged as they reached the threshold of light. The forest around them shrieked as if rising in indignant fury, branches snapping in the wake of their approach, but no sooner had they reached the light's edge did it flicker violently, illuminating a figure behind the veil of darkness. A shadow wrapped in his own darkness, eyes burning like coals. The growl transformed into a chilling silence, an eerie calm that enveloped the forest as they faced the embodiment of their worst fears. "Why do you resist?" It rasped, voice smearing across the air like poison. "You can belong again." A wave of cold washed over Sarah, making her heart clench tight. A shiver crept down her spine as she felt the encroaching dread. "No!" she barked, though uncertainty laced her words. "We want to go back." But deep down, the weight of the forest's pull was almost hypnotic, her thoughts swirling as the whispers returned, seductive and promising. Jake squeezed her hand tighter, grounding her. Together, they faced the entity, the shadows swirling like currents around them. The flickering light stood against the dark tide, a fragile shield. Sarah felt her body tense, she was ready to fight back, to prove they wouldn't be claimed, but with each moment, uncertainty gnawed at her mind. Could the light truly protect them, or was it just another trick of the woods? And what if the darkness revealed an answer she wasn't ready to accept? As the last rays of light danced on the edge, with the figure looming closer and the shadows weaving menacing patterns around them, she felt the world shudder. Was their desperate charge forward destined for hope, or would they slip back into the hungry abyss? The forest held its breath, and the answer lay right before them. The moment hung heavy, crackling with tension. The dark figure, cloaked in swirling shadows, stepped forward. Its eyes glowed brighter, piercing through the gloom, fixating on Sarah and Jake. The growl faded into a whisper, yet its chilling echo lingered in the stillness, a promise unkept. "Come closer," it beckoned, voice soft like a fading breeze. "Feel the comfort of the dark." Sarah pulled Jake closer, her grip tightening, the warmth of his small hand a stark contrast against the icy dread creeping around them. "No!" she shouted again, louder, searching for strength. Their world spun, darkness enveloped what remained of the flickering light. The forest seemed to breathe, surrounding them, tightening its grip. The branches loomed like skeletal hands, twisting into grotesque shapes that pressed inwards. "What do you want?" Sarah's voice trembled, raw with fear. She felt small, almost childlike, facing this entity. "I want for you what you truly desire," it hissed, a smile curling its lips. A chorus of laughter echoed, mocking, taunting. "A place to belong. A life without fear." Familiar memories flooded Sarah's mind, her childhood home, lazy summer days, laughter piercing the air. But those moments now felt distant, like wisps of smoke dissolving into shadow. The forest coiled closer, the promise of belonging, a siren's call enveloping her in a mist of longing. "Mom!" Jake's voice was a lifeline, pulling her back. He turned, his face wide with terror, eyes wide and pleading. "Don't listen to it." The creature's gaze flickered to Jake, and the sinister grin grew wider. "He fears the truth, like so many. But perhaps he, too, can join." "No!" Sarah shouted, defiance surging through her. "We won't be like them." The shadows recoiled, shrieking in frustrated despair as the air crackled. For an instant, the darkness hesitated, the figures wavering, revealing flickers of lost souls trapped within. Faces she almost recognized whispered to her, voices that beckoned and begged. "Help us, it's not too late, join us." But Sarah's resolve solidified. She threw her head back, defiance igniting her voice. "We reject you." The words exploded into the space around them, echoing off the trees, shattering the malevolence that surrounded them. As their declaration hung in the air, the entity screamed, a noise that shattered her bones, vibrating through the ground. The shadows writhed violently, and a dark wind spiraled around them, a chaotic tempest seeking to pull them apart. "Run! Now!" Sarah yelled, thrusting Jake ahead. She felt the heat of the darkness as she turned, a pointed task behind her. They sprinted. The path glimmered once more, fragments of light piercing the encroaching black. Each step felt like a battle against a tide pulling them back, but the darkness, furious, clawed at their feet, hungry to reclaim them. But then, it broke. A sudden opening in the mass of shadow loomed ahead, a door that promised freedom. "Go, Jake!" Sarah urged through gritted teeth, pushing him forward, not daring to look back at the wrathful roar that filled the trees, and just when she thought they'd burst into the wide beyond, a shadow lunged, seizing her ankle. She screamed, the sound tearing through the air, as darkness encircled her, pulling her down into the depths once more. "Mom!" Jake turned, fear flashing across his features, but she forced a smile, shaking her head wildly. "Keep going. Don't stop." But a tug of despair wrapped around her heart. As darkness swallowed her whole, the chilling laughter roared louder than ever, promising that she would not escape easily. In the narrowing void, her grip slipped, then vanished completely. Darkness swallowed her scream, the forest closing in, shadows thickening like a shroud, lost. With Jake's feet pounding ahead, the sanctuary of the light ahead shrank as it disappeared, a glimmer fading. But what lay in that flickering sanctuary? Was it truly safe, or was something waiting within that light, twisted and devious? The forest watched, still alive and ever hungry. Where would the shadows take Sarah? Would the light betray Jake too? The answer lay just beyond the edge of darkness. Jake stumbled forward, heart racing. He could still hear his mother's voice ringing in his ears, urging him to escape. But every step away from her felt like a betrayal. He turned back, yearning for a glimpse, for something, anything to hold on to. The forest seemed to watch him, a dark presence, mocking his fear. Shadows shifted behind him, curling and loomed like fingers ready to grasp. "Mom!" He shouted into the thick blackness, each syllable swallowed whole by crackling silence. No answer. Just the rustle of unseen things in the underbrush. He pushed on, fueled by adrenaline, but the light ahead flickered like a wavering candle flame. Would it vanish too? Each heartbeat hammered in his ears, each breath tasted of ash and despair. Panic washed over him. Familiar laughter echoed through the trees, chilling and taunting, your typical prelude to a horror movie that always ended badly. "Come play with us, Jake," they whispered. The voices inexplicably felt sweet, seductive like candy. "Stay with us forever." "No." He gasped, shaking his head violently. He remembered his mom's warning. He had to keep moving. The warmth of her grip had gone, replaced by a gnawing ache deep inside. I want to listen. Jake broke into a run, dodging branches that reached for him like claws. He burst into a clearing, lungs burning, eyes searching. The light shimmered at the edge, bathing the clearing in a soft glow. What if it's not real? Fear whispered to him like an old friend. What if it leads to nowhere? He hesitated. The light flickered. Shadows danced just outside the reach of illumination, creeping closer, whispering dark promises of happiness and belonging. His mind wrestled with doubt, tugging at the remnants of his hope. Then he thought of Sarah. He could picture her rack of smiles, wisdom in her eyes, always brave. A sudden surge of determination ignited him. I can't leave her. Jake turned, fury against the shadows flaring up inside him. He took one last look back at the glimmering light. This time, it felt wrong, untrustworthy, like a mirage on a too-hot summer day. Everything about it pulsed with a sinister energy that made his skin crawl. Mom, I'm coming. He yelled, voice breaking. He stepped back into the forest, plunging deeper into the darkness, driven by a desperate need to find her. The air thickened as he walked, every breath tasting heavier, laden with the scent of decay. The forest seemed to shift, closing in on him, plotting. He could feel it crawling under his skin. Something was watching, waiting. Help us, voices echoed again, sounding closer now. It's not too late, join us. The darkness twisted in response to each choked breath, filling with silent screams all around him, shadows melding with shapes he couldn't fully make out. Suddenly, he froze. A figure materialized in the shadows, distinct and eerie, its face morphing in the dim light. It bore a twisted smile, eyes like swirling voids that seemed to siphon hope and sanity alike. They rejected us, it hissed, voice a blend of sorrow and wrath. But you're special. You don't need to end up like them. No. Jake took a step back, terror coursing through him. The figure lunged forward. Join us, find your freedom. Jake sprinted again, the ground beneath cracking with the weight of dread. Branches lashed out, tearing at his clothes, snapping as he navigated through the thickening shadows. Mom! I'll find you. But as the forest encased him, he realized, the darker the path, the more the shadows desired to keep him. What did it mean to join them? What would happen if he did? Each question spun venomously in his mind as he plunged deeper into the forest's grasp. And then it hit him, what if he wasn't the one searching for his mother? What if she had already joined them? Unease blossomed in his stomach. To follow in her footsteps? What if it was a journey to the end? Moments away from madness, he gasped, was it too late for Sarah? What if the shadows already held her? As darkness closed in, he had to make a choice, stay or fight. But would he ever find the light, or was he doomed to dwell in the dark? And somewhere in that haunting silence, a chilling thought settled over him: if he found her, what would they become together? The woods trembled loud, a pulse like a heart ready to burst. Shadows danced, intangible yet demanding, twisting around Sarah's legs as despair rose to choke her throat. She could sense the lurking menace, feel the eyes of the forest watching, waiting, hungering. The air thickened, a suffocating embrace that seemed to whisper her name like a sinister lullaby. Mom! Jake's voice shot through the haze, but bravery felt far away. How could she fight? The dark figure loomed behind her, a monstrous shadow curled against the flickering light of the tree. You can't do this. She called out, gritting her teeth against the terror pooling within. The entity pulsed, interested now, drawing closer, shadows writhed excitedly. Embrace the dark, be free. It urged, voice dripping honey-sweet with venom. Sarah recoiled, feeling cold sweat race down her spine. We will not submit. She shouted defiantly, though doubt clawed at her resolve like a hungry beast. The shadows howled, furious and wild, slashing at the air as if to tear apart her determination. Jake! She cried, wheeling around to see him stumbling through the darkness, still searching. The void of despair fought against the tether of hope that connected them. "I'm here!" she yelled, the yearning almost breaking her. Never had the woods felt more alive, spiraling into chaos as the figure stepped forward, dark tendrils swirling, a devilish cloak seeking to snatch Jake. "He belongs to us now," it hissed, the voices crescendoing, offering false safety. "No!" she screamed, as though her voice could forge a path through the grim net that sought to ensnare them. Desperation overwhelmed her senses. "Jake! This way!" She thrust her arm toward the tree, where the golden light dimmed with uncertainty, yet it was still a flicker of warmth in the bone-chilling darkness. With heartbreak coursing like blood through her veins, she pushed away from the dark figure, who writhed in rage, tendrils lashing out violently. "Join us, Sarah," it cooed, "don't let him go." The very mention of losing Jake fueled her strength. "You want to take him." She lunged toward her son, every fiber in her being urging her to reach him, to keep him safe. As if the universe aligned with her resolve, she felt the weight of her fears shift. They were not meant to yield to darkness. Jake froze, trapped for a moment in the abyss of hesitation where darkness intersected with light. But then Sarah's fierce love pierced through his uncertainty like a beacon. "Run to me!" she shouted, not just a plea but a vow it would never end here. With newfound ferocity, she surged forward, breaking through a gauntlet of shadows as tendrils swiped through the air. Air crackled around her, a tapestry woven of fears and regrets, looming ghosts of what could have been. She felt Jake's small hand grasp hers, and they collided, hearts sinking into a rhythmic beat of defiance against the oppressive dark. Together, they raced toward the tree. The figure twisted, its form losing its human-like shape, growing more monstrous and wild, shrieking as they approached the sanctuary of light. The cacophony surrounding them erupted into a frenzy. "You cannot escape!" The shadows hissed, and she felt the breath of centuries of sorrow pushing against her, a wall of despair trying to crush them. "Keep running!" They weaved through the thin light, branches clawing at them in futile efforts to hinder escape. The air shifted, the whispers turned into a single, frenzied roar that echoed as it surged behind them. Nothing less than primal terror shot through every part of Sarah, but ahead a glimmer, hope, salvation. In a flurry of limbs and urgency, they dove into the pale glow. Light wrapped around them like a protective shield, and the figure howled in rage, turning to vapor as it recoiled from the brilliance. For an agonizing second, it felt as if they were suspended in time. Light and dark collided in a fracas, the force rebuffing the darkness, sending cascading waves outward. "Hold on!" Sarah shouted, just as the tendrils tried one last grasp, snapping like whips against the force of the light. In an instant, the world righted itself, and they stumbled forward, breaking free from the suffocating grip of despair. Jake clung tightly, disbelief etched on his face. "Did we do it?" he gasped, blinking wide eyes toward the light, where they found their footing again. "Yes," Sarah breathed, tears brimming, relief overwhelming her heart. "We fought them and won." A stillness enveloped them, and the shadows melted into the background, retreating like a tide pulled back into the ocean, whispers fading into the night. They had escaped together. As the forest sighed, its breath slowly returning to normalcy, Sarah and Jake stood hand in hand beneath the ancient tree, watching as dawn broke across the horizon, pink and copper bleeding into the sky. The woods, once monstrous, now appeared serene and inviting, as if the nightmares had simply retreated deeper into the recesses of what was no longer theirs to claim. "Can we go home now?" Jake asked, small and vulnerable as he glanced up at her. Yes. They could finally leave this place behind. It's time to go home. And together, hand in hand, they navigated back through the woods, leaving the weight of fear behind. The path unfolded before them, illuminated by the warmth of morning sunlight. They had faced the darkness, and though it would always lurk on the edges, they emerged united, resilient against whatever shadows awaited them. This was the moment to breathe hope, standing on lives gifted back by love. Their goodbye to the haunted woods lingered in the air, a promise never to return. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling ending, and instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to support the channel. Don't wait even one more second to share. This is the moment to show your love.